Now let's look into some auditing techniques. As auditors will use various audit techniques to get the required objective proof and obtain the objectives of every internal audit session. Here are some audit techniques which are as follows. So we have first as sampling. This technique is one of the most efficient ways to obtain audit objectives. Auditor must be able to reach valid conclusions about large systems. However, it's often impractical or too costly to study every single item in large system. There may be just too many items to examine, or they may be spread over a large geographical area. As a result, auditors work with smaller samples. So it's always easy for an auditor to work with smaller samples to come on a specific conclusion, which will be very good for the organization to improve. Sampling can be further divided into two types: judgment based sampling and statistical sampling. So in judgment based sampling, it depends on the knowledge, skill, and experience of audit team members. When using this approach, auditors use their personal judgment to select audit samples. So, for example, if you have a few employees and you need to see their performance, so you will get the evidence, you will get the report, and in that you will take out the one or two or three reports of few employees, or these employees, and you try to judge or compare or match their performance with each other and try to come up on a conclusion. Whereas you have statistical sampling. Here you Here your statistical sampling plan should help you to achieve your audit objectives and should be based on what is known about the characteristics that define the population you intend to study. So, for example, if you want to see the performance of the employees and you have got the reports, so you can see that performance through statistical data. So, ISO 19011 mentions two statistical sampling techniques. First is attribute based sampling, and second is variable based sampling. Attribute sampling is used when there are two possible outcomes attributes for each sample. It would be yes or no, pass or fail, correct or incorrect. So this attribute sampling can be done through feedbacks or feedback forms or surveys. Okay, and then we have variable based sampling. It is used when outcomes occur along a range of values. So here you can definitely check variables based sampling through charts and graphs, where you will be able to see the values with the range, and you will be able to compare the conclusions with each other. Then we have observation as another technique. Auditors can observe a work process in review or action, a physical feature or of premises, to determine if a method is efficient in obtaining intended results. It can be an inactive observation while individuals carry on their work, or a directed walkthrough where an auditor will ask questions to get a better understanding. And third, we have testing. In some situations, sampling or observing live data will not be possible. For instance, if doing an activity generates unnecessary risk or too much disruption to the organization. So, while observing, if you are standing besides an employee and you are observing what he is doing, you are asking some questions, so he might be getting disturbed. You might be disrupting his process. So, in order to stop that, or in order to uh, overcome that problem, we can do a testing uh, thing, or we can do an examination, try to assess them through by giving them some questions on paper, and they can give a test on the same, and we can gauge their performance and we can gauge their capability. Then we have fourth technique, interview. Showing the commitment of the leadership of the organization is a major requirement, and one way to audit this is using interviews. Our auditors can meet with individuals from across the organization to ask them about various factors of the management system. This is an excellent way to test awareness of critical policies and methods. So here we will be able to determine and how the process is working, how the leadership is working in the organization, and how they are portraying themselves to their employees. Fifth, we have data analytics, the science of analyzing raw data in order to make conclusions about that information. Some processes can create a large amount of data which can be examined to determine if an intended result has been obtained. This is a more technical method, but it can be a beneficial technique. Sixth technique we have is on-site versus off-site. Most audits are performed on-site, which means in the organization or in the office, face to face. But with the emergence of video conferencing, remote execution of some of the above techniques is becoming increasingly feasible. So nowadays, during in this pandemic, also, if you will see, we have different ways of connecting without being in office. So we have video conferencing, or we have Zoom call, which we usually do, which we mostly do. So through that, we can do a video conferencing and we can do audits too. At the planning stage of the audit program, the balance between on-site and off-site audits should be carefully considered, and it should be remembered that some audit techniques can only be performed on-site. Seventh technique, we have human interaction versus no human interaction. Individuals are an essential part of the QMS of an organization and are also a key to discovering what is happening within a management system. Most of our audit time will be spent working with members of the site being audited.